good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of the participants and colleagues in the call. It's a pleasure for me as a Senior Human Rights Advisor at the International Disability Alliance to participate on the event. And it's also, of course, very good that you join in the efforts of making more visible and enhanced transparency of the electoral process in this joint initiative with the Geneva Human Rights Hub and the GQUAL Campaign. I will move now to the two questions that I will be pasting also in the chat in both English and French immediately after finalizing the questions. The first question. As you know, the main function of the CRPD Committee is to undertake reviews of states' reports on CRPD implementation and adopt concluding observations with recommendations. A big number of state reviews have shown limited understanding of the human rights model of disability and specific CRPD standards, as well as limited advancement in CRPD implementation by state parties to the Convention. In your opinion, what are the main obstacles and challenges ahead for a better CRPD understanding and implementation by states? If elected member of the CRPD Committee, how would your expertise and competencies contribute to combat and overcome those obstacles and challenges? First question then. Obstacles and challenges ahead for better CRPD understanding, and how would your expertise contribute to combat and overcome those? The second question is the following. As you know, the CRPD Committee has developed substantive standards and guidance on many diverse articles of the Convention through its different functions. If elected member of the committee and given the current development and implementation of CRPD standards, which topic or topics you believe should be further addressed and developed by the committee? And please explain the rationale of your suggestion. Then second question then, which topics or topics should be further developed by the committee and why? I will be pasting the questions in the chat. I would like to kindly pass the floor to Ms. Utumapu for her responses. You have 3 minutes. You are not forced to use the 3 minutes if you can achieve to respond with less time. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I believe that the global central challenges is not commitment, but it's more towards implementation. First, limited domestication of the CRPD. Many states have ratified the convention, but they have not fully domesticated the aspects of the convention into laws and policies, as well as budgets. Secondly, the gaps in data and evidence. Persons with disabilities, despite the availability of the Washington questions, persons with disabilities remain invisible in national statistics. The lack of disaggregated data remains a challenge. If people are not counted, they're not included. Third, resource and capacity constraints. I represent small island developing states where the need to develop accessibility standards, for instance, is critical, but we do not have enough resources. Fourth, we still face stigma and discrimination as persons with disabilities. This continues to limit access to education, employment, to name a few, as well as cultural and faith-based settings, which is critical to persons like us in the Pacific. Lastly, but not the least, escalating risk from climate change and emergencies. these risks are essential to ensure that when addressing these risks are essential to ensure inclusiveness of persons with disabilities. So if given the opportunity to be a member of the committee, I will ensure that attention of the committee when reviewing common states are given to this emphasis and are given to addressing these challenges. For the second question, I prefer giving emphasis to access to justice as well as care economy and social protection. If we have enough resources, maybe we can address the issue of assisted dying, because these concepts are relatively new and some countries are already addressing them, but it is critical that the UN CRPD committee is given particular attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Utumapu, for your presentation and responses. We move now to the next candidate, Ms. Remengesau. Please, Ms. Remengesau.
A key challenge is the gap between commitment and implementation. Although many states have ratified the convention, applying it remains difficult due to limited capacity, understanding, and structural barriers, especially in the Pacific. I would help ensure the committee's outputs are practical, context-sensitive, and translate commitments into real impact. I would also support more effective and regionally grounded approaches, including helping deliver CRPD 2030 in the Pacific, as requested by Pacific states, and supporting a Pacific session of the committee. My focus is to help build a committee that is more effective, accessible, more relevant, and ultimately more sustainable. For the second question, I would prioritize implementation of existing standards, particularly the most recent general comment of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The committee has developed strong normative guidance. The key challenge now is ensuring consistent application at national level. Strengthening the follow-up and practical guidance would help translate these standards into tangible improvements. At the same time, the committee should develop a new general comment on artificial intelligence and disability rights under CRPD. AI is existing and is affecting everyone. Clear guidance is needed to address discrimination, accessibility, and accountability, ensuring the convention remains relevant in the digital age. Finally, I would emphasize working across treaty bodies to mainstream disability rights. This includes general comment on CRC and engaging in discussions on possible Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Remengesau, for your presentation. We move now to the next candidate, Ms. Ravatel. Ms. Ravatel, you have the floor.
Donc, les défis, les obstacles surmontés pour une meilleure compréhension de la Convention, eh bien, tout d'abord, voilà, le rien sur nous sans nous, voilà, est important. Par exemple, je vois en France, on est encore voilà, dans une dimension modèle médical. Voilà, il y a modèle médical, modèle social. Et la notion du sport est un réel vecteur pour modifier en fait cette représentation du handicap, parce qu'on voilà, on oublie que derrière les personnes handicapées, eh bien, c'est des personnes, c'est des êtres humains. Et le problème, c'est qu'on voit le handicap avant de voir la personne derrière. Et les défis aussi, c'est de mieux prendre en compte la parole des personnes concernées au sein des États, ce qui n'est pas toujours fait. Et les obstacles, eh bien, les obstacles, je pense aussi, c'est que il faut, c'est pas toujours facile de travailler avec les États. Et voilà, il faut avoir cette capacité un peu de diplomatie pour que les États prennent en compte la société civile dans les décisions qui les concernent. Et puis les thèmes à développer, alors bien évidemment, il y a l'intelligence artificielle qui est quand même à l'heure actuelle primordial. Et puis, il y a toute cette question du sport qui est vraiment un vecteur d'inclusion sociale qui change voilà, la perception qu'on a de la personne. On a pu le voir avec les Jeux paralympiques à Paris en 2024. Et puis un thème aussi important, c'est de rendre visibles les invisibles, c'est-à-dire les personnes qui ont un handicap, on va dire, psychosocial, puisqu'on se rend bien compte qu'aujourd'hui, quand on voit et qu'on parle de handicap, eh bien, toute cette notion de, de handicap qui ne se voit pas est rarement pris en compte. Et d'ailleurs, hein, l'inclusion qui n'atteint pas les plus invisibles, eh bien, en fait, n'est pas de l'inclusion et c'est une violence supplémentaire pour les personnes qui ont cet handicap invisible, dont fait partie l'autisme. Voilà, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Ravatel. We move to the next candidate, Mr. Ouedraogo. Please, Mr. Ouedraogo. You have the floor.
Merci pour la parole. Les obstacles pour la mise en œuvre de la Convention relative aux droits des personnes handicapées, nous pouvons citer entre autres la faible prise en compte des personnes handicapées dans les instances de décision, la faible prise en compte des besoins des personnes handicapées dans les documents de planification. On peut citer également souvent l'insuffisance des ressources allouées, en tout cas dans le domaine du handicap. Et il y a aussi la faible volonté politique. Nous pouvons citer aussi la persistance des stéréotypes, en tout cas à l'égard du handicap, les discriminations, les différentes considérations par rapport au handicap. Et nous pensons qu'il faut identifier les actions de sensibilisation à tous les endroits, que ce soit au niveau même des acteurs étatiques, que ce soit au niveau des communautés, des leaders communautaires. Voilà. Il faut aussi que les lois soient inclusives. Voilà. Il faut travailler à ce que toutes les lois prennent en compte les besoins spécifiques des personnes handicapées et également élaborer des stratégies en tout cas qui vont protéger et promouvoir les droits des personnes handicapées et bien sûr prendre en compte les personnes handicapées dans les instances de décision parce que l'adage qui dit plus rien pour nous sans nous, si les personnes handicapées sont dans les instances, elles pourront participer, donner leur point de vue et influencer les décisions. Au niveau, voilà, ce que je peux ajouter aussi, c'est que au niveau par rapport à la vision, je pense qu'il est en tout cas nécessaire de renforcer des dialogues constructifs avec les États et promouvoir des recommandations concrètes et applicables et encourager l'intégration en tout cas du handicap dans les agendas internationaux et même nationaux et travailler à ce que les besoins des personnes handicapées puissent être pris en compte à tous les niveaux. Il y a également aussi la prise en compte des personnes handicapées au niveau, voilà, les besoins des personnes handicapées dans les pays en crise. Parce que, bon, je suis du pays du Sahel où nous sommes, voilà, et c'est que d'autres pays aussi sont, en tout cas, dans cette situation de crise ou en tout cas, situation de catastrophe. Donc, il y a aussi travailler à l'autonomisation économique des personnes handicapées qui va les permettre aussi, en tout cas, d'avoir une autonomisation sociale, voilà, et participer au même titre que les autres membres de la société au développement de chaque nation. Donc, je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Ouedraogo. We move now to the next candidate, Mr. Urubare. Mr. Urubare, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. À l'heure actuelle, les défis du comité de droits des personnes handicapées sont multidimensionnels. Premièrement, il faut reconnaître que beaucoup d'organisations de la société civile ou des OPA, organisations de personnes handicapées, n'ont pas la chance de présenter des rapports alternatifs. Et beaucoup de pays ne présentent que des rapports pays. Or, c'est les rapports alternatifs qui doivent donc être la voie entre griffes la contradiction, donc de la réalité sur le terrain. Un autre défi est le défi du financement. Vous savez, il y a beaucoup d'organes de traité, beaucoup de travaux, beaucoup d'implications du comité, mais avec peu de moyens. Nous avons constaté que beaucoup de contributeurs sont en train de se désengager des institutions de l'ONU. Ça fait que beaucoup de comités, comme le comité des droits des personnes handicapées, dans un avenir proche, vont manquer de moyens. Donc, c'est un défi vraiment auquel il faut trouver solution. Un autre défi, c'est la mise en œuvre des recommandations faites par le comité des droits des personnes handicapées. Nos États reviennent après les présentations des rapports pays, reviennent avec des recommandations, mais qui dorment dans les tiroirs. Il se pose aujourd'hui la problématique du suivi et d'évaluation des recommandations qui ont été faites. Ça, c'est un défi. Un autre défi, là, je m'en arrêterai sur les défis, c'est la synergie d'action entre les organes du traité. Je crois que le comité des droits des personnes handicapées doit veiller à cela. Maintenant, que faire? Le comité doit veiller au suivi et évaluation. Par exemple, faire des missions exploratoires pour voir la réalité de la mise en œuvre des recommandations qui ont été faites au pays. Il faut également que le comité intensifie, n'est-ce pas, la participation de la société civile ou des OPH, n'est-ce pas, à la présentation des rapports alternatifs. Une fois membre de ce comité-là, moi, je ferai le plaidoyer vraiment dans ce sens. Par rapport à la deuxième question, le comité, de mon point de vue, doit vraiment mettre tout en œuvre pour que les recommandations qui sont faites aux États soient vraiment mises en œuvre. Parce que c'est ça qui sera le résultat de la mise en œuvre de la Convention. Le comité doit également s'investir dans la vulgarisation de la CDPH, de la Convention, à travers des sensibilisations grand public, à travers des formations, à travers des sensibilisations et à travers des plaidoyers. Il est important que le comité pense à avoir des accords avec des institutions de l'ONU qui sont dans des thématiques données. Si je prends l'UNESCO, le comité peut avoir des accords avec l'UNESCO et l'UNESCO va lui permettre de voir vraiment la mise en œuvre de l'éducation inclusive dans nos pays. Le comité se doit également d'accompagner la ratification par notre pays, par les pays membres, notamment les pays africains, notamment le Bénin. Le comité se doit d'accompagner la ratification du protocole africain sur les droits des personnes handicapées. Parce que le protocole africain, c'est le visage, c'est la CDPH tropicalisée, c'est la CDPH aux réalités africaines.
Et,
Donc, je crois que chaque continent
et,
a ce genre d'instruments juridiques.
et
Le
vous,
comité gagnerait vraiment à aider les pays à ratifier vraiment ces instruments juridiques-là. Je voudrais m'en arrêter là et une fois encore renouveler
parfait.
mes remerciements aux
Merci.
organisateurs de ce panel. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Urubare. We go now to the next candidate, Mr. Sido Nuho.
Merci beaucoup. Pour moi, les défis pour les comités sont nombreux. D'abord, je prends le gap entre les engagements pris par les États et la mise en œuvre sur le terrain. Les États ont connu tous les droits pour toutes les personnes handicapées. Mais sur le terrain, la mise en œuvre est vraiment reste à désirer. C'est un défi énorme. S'ajoute à ceci la question des droits pour les personnes, les groupes de personnes qui sont sous-représentées. Je voudrais parler des personnes avec handicap intellectuel, les personnes avec handicap psychosocial et les filles et les femmes handicapées et les personnes handicapées dans les situations d'urgence. Ceux-ci ont encore beaucoup de difficultés pour accéder aux droits. Je pense que la situation d'urgence est un nouveau défi et comme l'a énoncé beaucoup de mes précédents, c'est aussi les nouvelles technologies et le développement que ceci connaît sur la vie des personnes et que sur le futur des gens, ça va jouer également. Alors, il va falloir que le comité s'attaque à tous ces défis-là avec beaucoup de courage et il faut trouver des solutions innovantes. Quelles sont ces solutions? Si je suis élu, nous allons travailler pour trouver des solutions hybrides. Il faut trouver les moyens de contourner le manque de financement à travers exactement ces solutions de technologie, mais des technologies qui vont être accessibles pour tous et qui vont permettre au pays de présenter les rapports et, et au comité de pouvoir regarder ces rapports dans les brefs délais. Alors, quelles sont les nouvelles thématiques que le comité doit développer pour moi? Il y a bien sûr les personnes handicapées dans les situations d'urgence. Il y a également cette question d'intersectionnalité, donc les discriminations multiples que les personnes peuvent rencontrer dans leur vie. Comment est-ce que nous pouvons apporter des orientations aux États partis et comment est-ce qu'on peut renforcer la participation de la société civile au niveau local. Le comité joue un grand rôle, mais sans la société civile forte au niveau local, il va avoir énormément de problèmes, le comité, pour pouvoir orienter les États. Alors, je veux user de mes qualités de formateur Bridge ODD CDPH pour pouvoir renforcer la société civile afin qu'elle puisse nous aider à émerger les situations au niveau local. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Mrs. Sido Nujo. We move now to the next candidate. Ms. Yuot Kaite, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you so much. Indeed, as the question was about obstacles and challenges in understanding the CRPD provisions and implementing properly those by the states parties, I think that the main still existing obstacle is the historically neglected status of the human rights of persons with disabilities, with a still very strong and persistence of stigma, discriminatory attitudes, and systematic patterns of exclusion. So those obstacles, challenges that are existing in state parties, they are due to the lack of, I think, understanding, knowledge, and information. So I think to tackle those is really needed that persons themselves, via their exclusively evidencing situations in daily life, they train, build capacity, raise awareness of the state parties representatives of course, of the specific specialist, responsible specialists in changing those attitudes. And of course, it is very difficult, since I know through my training experiences how it is difficult to change the attitudes of judges, for instance, in the cases of legal capacity, etc. But it is possible, and it should be done via very practical examples, and maybe even organizing some regional exchanges of good practices and experiences among the regional or regions of the countries to show good examples and to evidence that including people with disabilities via dialogue and constant cooperation, this could be really achieved. And for the second question on the possible topics of general comments, I think I also agree with the access to justice, which is very much needed to provide some procedural accommodations and understanding on how the access to justice could be made accessible and accommodate all the needs of persons with disabilities. But also, for instance, Article 23, like right to family and home, or Article 14 with the liberty in connection with the Article 25 on the health, specifically on involuntary hospitalization and treatment, and challenging those via, again, providing very clear alternatives, very clear practical examples of the human rights-based approach to those topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. very much, Ms. Yotkaite. We move to the next candidate, Mr. Hovsepian. Mr. Hovsepian, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the answers of my colleagues. So on the first question, I think we also need to look at this in a broader context. We are currently facing wider challenges in the human rights systems, including declining trust in international law and international humanitarian law, and in many places weakening democratic institutions. And of course, in such situations, rights of persons with disabilities are often refrained from security or efficiency concerns. And of course, disability rights are not becoming are the ones among the ones first to be affected. Another issue is that many systems are built around segregation and control, and even if when they don't, they tend to evolve in that direction over time. And we also see misunderstanding in standards, how standards are applied. For example, from the Council of Europe's example, in discussions around the additional protocol of the Oviedo Convention on Human Rights and Biomedicine, it is sometimes argued that certain measures concern persons with mental health conditions rather than persons with disabilities in general. So this shows how there is still a confusion between about the scope of the convention and the definition of disability. And another factor that shouldn't be overlooked is the impact of the corruption and lack of accountability, which can directly affect how policies are implemented and how resources are allocated in general. And finally, there is a often gap of real implementation, sometimes due to lack of guidance and sometimes due to limited political will. It could be very simple. On the second question, this is directly linked to my second priority, which is developing underexplored areas of the convention. I think some articles need more attention. For example, right to life, the integrity of the person, liberty of movement and nationality, especially around identity, documents, and citizenship. And also another area is privacy. And this becomes even more important in the context of digital systems and artificial intelligence, as was mentioned by many of my colleagues. And I know from experience that many states are increasingly using data and algorithm-based decision-making tools, which often without even sufficient safeguards. And another area is disability assessment. In particular, how national systems define who is considered as a person with disabilities and how this affects access to rights and services. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hovsepian. We move now to the following candidate, Ms. Hagos. Please, Ms. Hagos, you have the floor.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity. I'll start with obstacles and challenges for CRPD understanding and implementation and how my expertise contributes to this. The main obstacle remain the persistence of charity and medical models of disability, which prevent states from fully embracing the human rights model. And many governments still lack harmonized legislation, disability disaggregated data, and effective monitoring mechanisms. And of course, they raise resource constraints in their contexts. And there is also limited participation of organizations of persons with disabilities in policy making, implementation, and so on. And the situation is worse in conflict-affected areas and contexts, of course. So I would bring, if elected, I would bring both lived experience as a woman with a disability, but also professional expertise in translating this CRPD standards into institutional reforms, where institutions can be inclusive of persons with disabilities in all their diversities. My track record includes establishing and leading an independent disability rights monitoring and advocating for CRPD aligned national laws, policies. So I would use these competencies to strengthen states' understanding of CRPD obligations, promote intersectional approaches, and ensure, of course, OPDs are central parts of this. And my networks with national human rights institutions, civil society organizations, and regional human rights bodies would help. I also think it's important to align the work of CRPD Committee and regional special mechanisms like the Working Group on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Africa, where I'm an expert member, so I would add that value as well. In terms of the second question, topics that need further development by the committee, I would like to raise conflict and post-conflict and humanitarian settings where persons with disabilities face hate and exclusion. I know the committee is drafting a general comment on Article 11 on situation of risk and humanitarian emergencies. And while doing so, the committee should provide practical guidance on ensuring accessibility, reasonable accommodation, and protection in humanitarian response. The second one is intersectionality. More attention is needed to compounded discrimination faced by women, children, older persons with disabilities, as well as those displaced in different contexts. The committee has already worked on a general comment on women with disabilities, but it's also important to further work on children with disabilities, older persons with disabilities, and also those living in rural and low-income settings to address the intersectional discrimination they face. Yes, these are some of the topics I would recommend for development, but also adding access. Okay, so I'll end it there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Hagos. We move now to the last candidate in this round, Mr. Al-Alse. Please go ahead.
For the first one about the challenge to understand the human rights model and consequently to implement the convention, I think there are three main reasons. The first one is conceptual, because having a cumulative, I would say, perception or vision about persons with disabilities and their rights based on a medical model and welfare and charity approach, it's like something you can change overnight. It's like the paradigm shift. It's kind of if you are converting from religion to another one, because it's constituted in everything, in your cultural and social values. So we understand from our communication and interaction with different countries from different contexts and milieus that there is this natural resistance, and it should be handled gradually by explaining and giving in a very diplomatic but also concrete way the know-how and the technical advices by the committee. And this is one of the committee main roles. It's not only to have the dialogue, but the dialogue should be kind of guidance, and the committee is a technical hub, a global technical hub for these states. The second reason is that we can't by any means isolate or separate the prevailing atmosphere in any country regarding democracy or human rights from the disability rights. If you are in a country in which human rights are quite restricted, limited, and the minorities like women, children, elderly people, migrant workers, they are discriminated against. Persons with disabilities absolutely won't be in a better situation. So the general context, public context regarding human rights, democracy plays absolutely a dominant role in hindering or creating this, I would say, challenge in terms of understanding and then implementing the CRPD. Last but not least, absolutely, in so many countries, there is a clear need for technical, I would say, resources, human resources in order to implement the convention. And implement the convention, I mean, as it should be implemented, as it should be interpreted. And this requires absolutely capacity development and support for the OPDs and individual activists with disabilities in order to play this role.
If you could start closing, that would be great.
Absolutely. The last question about general comment, as you absolutely know, I mean, we barely could, of course, I mean, get the general comment in Article 32, which is very important in international cooperation. But if there is another opportunity, for me, Article 28 on social protection is one of the most important articles because it's very weak in terms of the language. So it needs a guidance or general comments in order to, I would say, handle this weakness. And because it interacts and related to other articles like 19 and 26. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Asef, for the presentation. Thank you to all the candidates that have joined and have presented in this second segment.